The studio's nearly finished and I've been really busy taking all my stuff down into it and finding places to put it. But this week I managed to get a few simple flowers painted onto some greeting cards. And in this video, I'll show you how I painted this lily in watercolour. The people at Etchr kindly sent me a box of their greeting cards to try out, and I painted some flowers on them. They're not too difficult, and each of them took me about half an hour or 45 minutes or so to paint. The cards come in a box of 30. The paper is 100% cotton and it's vegan friendly. They sent me the cold press paper to try. It's fairly thick and not too fragile. It's 300 GSM in weight. They cost around $61 US for the box of 30. They also sent me these little envelopes that go with them. The envelopes are made of thick cardboard. And I'll demonstrate how I painted this lily in this video. If you want to see how I painted these other flowers, you'll need to join me on Patreon, where you'll be able to download my reference photos, the line drawings, some progress photos of the paintings, and a copy of my finished paintings. Okay, let's have a look at this little lily. I used Winsor & Newton professional watercolour paints and my Da Vinci Maestro brushes. And the reference photo that I used is my own. I'm using my number 2 brush to wet inside the lily with some water. There's a shadow in there that I want to paint on, and I want it to have soft paint edges. I'll use the grey that I mixed for one of the other flowers. It's made from French ultramarine and burnt sienna. I paint that grey paint onto the wet paper, just where the shadow's sitting. Before that dries, I'll drop some green into that. The green is a mixture of French ultramarine and transparent yellow. I paint that in there while it's wet. With the residue paint that's on my brush, I'll paint this little tiny shadow in here. It's on dry paper up here though. I'll take the paint out of my brush now and use it damp to soften that edge just there. So I dip my brush in my water container and I dry it on my towel before I do that. Without touching that area that I just painted, I'll paint some water on this front curved over section. There's a little shadow running down the left-hand side and some green at the bottom. And this is the grey paint again. I run it down that front edge. It bleeds back over the wet paper. That's the mixture of French ultramarine and burnt sienna. And here's a touch of that green mixture again on there. Actually, looking at that, I might add a bit more of the transparent yellow into the green mixture. That's better. It's more like the reference photo, I think. So it's a mix of the French ultramarine, transparent yellow, but it's got a bit more yellow in it this time. I'll put some of that down here too while it's wet. Okay, now some water on this front section. Everything else is dry. I'm going to run some colour down the front of it. I've just painted some green on the tip of the lily, and I also painted a little grey shadow with the grey mixture. I've got the grey paint again. I paint that onto the wet paper. If the paint doesn't spread quite as far as I want it to, I'll push it out there with my brush. It touches the other curved over part there. And down the bottom I need to paint some green. So this is the green mixture, French ultramarine mixed with transparent yellow. Paper's still wet. It's starting to dry down the bottom here though. Now I'm going to drag it down onto the stem. Now the stem's dry. I didn't wet it down here. There's a tiny little cast shadow up here, so I paint that in with the grey on the dry paper. Back up to the top here, that's a bit of water on that section there that I haven't painted yet. And some grey paint. I run it down that edge and it bleeds back over the water. I decided to deepen the shadow slightly inside the cup, so I'm wetting that area with water. I'll use the grey paint. It's not darker at all, it's just another layer of it. Deepens the colour slightly right in there. I'll take the paint out of my brush and I'll soften that paint edge further. So I dip it in my water container, dab it on my cloth, and then I soften away that edge there. I need to darken the front of the lily on the green area. So for that I'll mix some more of the French ultramarine into my green mixture. So that was a mixture of French ultramarine and transparent yellow, but I put more of the French ultramarine in it to darken it then. And here I'm wetting that green area with water. And then I use that darker colour to run it down the front to increase the shadow, the colour that's there. It helps to make it look a bit more rounded. I'll run it down the stem as well. I'm thinking I could go a little bit darker with it, so that's a bit more of the French ultramarine and also a bit of burnt sienna. Let's see what that looks like. That's a bit better. It's still wet, so I'm painting that over the top. Here I've got my damp brush, just sopping some of that paint back up. My brush is just damp. It takes a bit of paint off to reveal that lighter section. And I'll just put a little bit of colour down that edge there on the dry paper. I dried it really well with the hairdryer and now I'm removing pencil lines that I can still see. And then I took the tape off. And there it is, finished. So that was a fairly simple one. I found the paper quite pleasant to paint on, and I plan to paint some more when I have time. I thought I'd do some simple beetles and bugs on the next group that I paint. Thanks for watching. If you've painted on these little cards yourself, let me know in the comments what you thought of the paper. As always, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and I'll see you in my next video. I've been painting some simple flowers on greeting cards, and in this video I'll show you how I painted this lily in watercolour. This one. That one. And in this video I'll show you how I painted this little lily. I've been really busy. My studio's nearly finished and I've been really busy taking all my art supplies and stuff out. Yeah, stuff. taken the stuff out there. I've been really busy. No. The studio, my painting studio is nearly finished, and I've been really busy this week carting all my stuff outside and finding places to put it. But this week I managed to get a few flowers painted on greeting cards. If you want to see how I painted these other flowers, these ones just here. Okay, let's have a look at this little lily. Let's have a look at it. This one here. It's here. Here. This one.